Great, it's 6:01, so we'll call to order tonight's meeting. Welcome. Could we have a mover, please, Councillor Hughes, for adoption of the agenda?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fitton. Be it resolved that the council meeting agenda of November 4th, 2020 be adopted as circulated.
All right, any discussion of the agenda? Seeing none, then all in favor? All right, that's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest with regard to tonight's open session agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. We have no public information or public presentations tonight, but we can move to notices and information by members of staff and council. So if any staff have anything to that's not on the agenda, just an update for tonight, please go ahead. Mr. Patterson, do you want to start? Thanks.
Certainly, Your Worship. Through to council, a couple of quick items. One is just sort of promoting road safety as we've seen our first significant snowfall. Not that it's a huge snowfall, but it certainly made the roads a little treacherous. So would encourage everybody in the community to sort of put their winter driving hats on and let's keep it safe. The second one, which was I just spoke of briefly, but currently in Deep River area, there are 6 cases, and that's over the entire span of the pandemic, 2 of which are currently active. So there's, given some of the stuff that's been happening in the second wave and in our area, in particular in Renfrew County, we're faring it relatively well compared to some areas. And the next one, I would just pass over to Jackie quickly.
Your Worship. Thanks.
Thank you. Through you to council. Just wanted to let council know, if you haven't called into the town hall recently, we have a new addition to our staff, and her name is April Kubota. She's been a great asset. She's been with us a couple of weeks now. We had interviewed for the position of receptionist, recreation assistant, and April was the successful candidate, and she has been fitting in quite well, and she's been a big asset and a help to all of the rest of staff.
Great, thank you. I met April last week when I went in to pay a bill. Thank you.
Very pleasant. Your Worship, through to council, one more update from Chief McRae.
Thank you.
Gary, your mute is on.
Chief, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Through you, Mayor, to council, just an update on the recent incidents that we've had in the with the fire department. So back on October 23rd, we responded to an ammonia leak at the curling club. The Deep River Fire Department responded. They did an initial assessment on the call. The parts per million they were reading on the detectors for the ammonia leak were such that they had to safe back out and reassess. They made calls to Canutech, which is a group and a company that is available for fire departments to call for assistance when responding to leaks and hazardous materials events, which was very helpful to the incident commander and the team. Based on that information from Canutech and the risk at the site, they determined not to enter the building. The incident commander and I were in communication and on the phone. I made additional calls to the mutual aid coordinator for Renfrew County to advise him of the situation. He then contacted the Provincial Response Center, who in turn called me to advise that they were aware and if they needed any assistance that they were available. They were on standby for a period of time as we had some trades personnel responding from Ottawa, the AC Mechanical group that maintains the equipment at the curling club. They arrived on scene. They didn't have any personal protective equipment. They couldn't do anything. So we had to activate the emergency response from the province, which in turn dispatched the Ottawa Fire Service hazmat team. They arrived on scene at the call originated at 8 o'clock in the morning. They arrived on scene at 3 in the afternoon. Of course, having all the equipment and tools for responding to hazardous materials events, they quickly assessed the situation. They isolated the leak, and the hazardous gas in the area slowly dissipated to a point where they left the building secured for the evening and went back the next morning to reinforce that things were safe. And when they went back the next morning, everything was clear and the scene was determined stand down. It was out, if you will. Also, that groups that responded and were aware of the event, it was the OFM dispatched a representative from Barrie, which is a common occurrence whenever the hazmat team or any assistance from the province is requested. They respond to the municipality to ensure, I guess, that the teams are working together, and if there's any concerns or issues, they will help you get through them. The Spills Action Center from the MOE was notified of the leak and again advised when everything was isolated, so they had no concerns. They were thankful of what we did and how we handled the situation. So that is pretty much it. Just want to send a thank you out to CNL and the Ottawa Fire Service and the Provincial Response Team, the OFM, for their assistance in that call, and Canutech. If anybody has any questions before I move on to the recent fire we had, anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to comment, Chief, that all the people involved from the community were very impressed by the response that happened. And I know they've reached out to you and myself and council to extend their appreciation. So please, again, pass that on to the fire department. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, most recently, we had a fire yesterday at 490 Balmers Bay Road, which was a garage fire. The garage was a detached building from the home, so the building was not damaged. There were no injuries. The fire department responded. They request assistance from Laurentian Hills and Public Works. We need Public Works to put salt and sand on the road as we had pretty icy conditions that morning. All in all, the responders did very well. The support from Laurentian Hills was welcomed and did provide some great assistance in getting through the event.
Thank you. No injuries with that, as my understanding?
No injuries, no.
Okay, great. It's unfortunate for the family.
Yes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Councillor Myers, please go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Dion. I just wanted to comment that, as people may know, in my other life, I have the opportunity sometimes to be on scene when these events take place, and I'm always very impressed with the firefighters. Just the response, the professionalism, the coordinated response, being just, I'm always very impressed. And I was very impressed yesterday at the way they tackled that event.
Thank you. Thank you. So kudos to the department there, and
thank you.
okay, and is that all the updates from staff, Mr. Patterson, at this point? Oh, yeah, okay.
Your worship, through to council, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just call on council if there's any updates tonight from council's point of view. Okay, I believe I've got the honor then of just providing notice that that council are very pleased to announce that Mr. Sean Patterson has successfully won the competition for Chief Administrative Officer for the town, and I believe there's an appointment bylaw later on in this agenda for Mr. Patterson. So I wanted to extend my personal congratulations and that of council to Mr. Patterson on his performance or through the competition, and wish him well and welcome him on as a full-time Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Deep River.
Your worship, through to council, thank you very much for the confidence, and I'm excited and looking forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. And no other updates from council. Yeah, we could do applause. It's hard on Zoom. If there's no other updates from council, we'll move on past deputations, as there are none tonight, and move to consent matters. All right, so we've got a number of items on the consent agenda, and as per normal, if you want to change the you can extract it if you want to change the resolution, or you can extract it or not extract it, but just ask to comment on it. So I'll go through them. And I think we'll go with the first one, 6.1.1. There's correspondence from Ken and Jill Robbins with regard to the zoning bylaw and the Building Code Act. And there's a recommendation to receive that. I will provide a brief update. I don't want to change the resolution from received at this time, but I do want to provide a brief update of my involvement, which I think council is aware of on this, and maybe Mr. Labra wishes to add something to that. So I'm just going to say thank Mr. and Mrs. Robbins for taking their time to write to council. I will state that I've also previously received several emails from Mr. Robbins, most of which I've copied to council and to which I replied on several occasions, including September 7th, 2020, that the town zoning bylaw had just been redone in May 2020. And there were several opportunities to comment. However, council did not receive any comments with regards to concerns related to the 40% maximum lot coverage. I also informed that I had checked with other local zoning bylaws in Renfrew County for comparison and found that Renfrew's R2 zone is the same as Deep River, allowing a maximum 40% lot coverage, while Pembroke and Arnprior do not have a maximum lot coverage provision. Instead, they require a minimum landscape lot area of 30%. Petawawa has a 33% maximum lot area coverage. And I also replied on September 11th, 2020, to include links to the Deep River zoning bylaw. And on September 25th, in response to emails in which there was a concern about a lack of protection in the town's bylaw offered to existing property owners. So because of the size of the adjacent dwelling. And then there were two other emails on September 30th, replying to Mr. Robbins' complaints with regard to building permit visibility and informing him of the chief building official's criteria on that. So we have replied on a number of occasions. I guess in this latest letter to council, there are also issues raised about requesting changes to the noise bylaw and requesting limitations on the use of the old Mattawa Road allowance, which is public open space, but requesting limitations on use for access to backyard properties, and posting of signs indicating that motorized vehicles are prohibited on that section of property. And I know that the gate has been put back because I live near there, and the boards have been removed from the side of the street. I believe our bylaw allows snowmobiles to go through there, so that is not necessarily a prohibited motorized vehicle, since that is permitted. So I think I'm just going to put that out there. That's what we've done to date. So just I'm looking at Mr. Labra, if there's anything else he wishes to add. No, saying no, then Councillor.
No, there is. I'm sorry. I'm just,
Sorry.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah. As you well know, concerning the existing zoning bylaw, like you said, Mayor Dion, and that we just passed it last year, and we had public awareness that they could come and talk about it if there was any concern, and we didn't have no concern at that time. And we are pretty well in par with all the other municipalities of our region here. Matter of fact, it's quite good. Concerning the building permit, that's the other thing. I did contact them, and I did told them about that. The building permit is directed by the Building Code Act of Ontario. So this is not something that the municipality is involved in, and there is appeal process, but it has to be done in quite a direction. It has to be a very major thing, because you got to remember these codes are throughout the province. They're not just Deep River, and anything that was there is pretty well up to snuff for every community. But what he is talking about is mainly about the 6 months that homes should be finished at certain time in 6 months. Again, the building code doesn't deal with this. The only way you could deal with this matter of finishing homes at a certain time is to have it's a bylaw concerning subdivision agreement, subdivision agreement that would be used while a new subdivision is being made, and then despeculation can be put on that it can be finished in a year or a year and a half or whatever. But again, it's quite a big process. But else than that, there's not too much with the building code that can be done concerning his response on this.
thank you,
yeah.
Labra. I see Councillor McLaren had his hand up. So is there any other comment you would like to make, Councillor McLaren? Or did you want to withdraw or extract this?
No, just a comment. It's like the merit to his letter and stuff. There seems to be some very items that maybe we could look at, like the outside of the building could not be done so the whole neighborhood doesn't look like it's under construction. Is there time limit we can put on? The outside has to be done prior to the inside. And as Mr. Labrie has touched on, open-ended building permits. Can we put a deadline on the building permits so not open-ended and this construction goes on and on for years? I think those are things that can we look at in our official plan. I know when we send out notices to people to come in, if you want to make some inquiries into our official plan or some suggestions, nothing ever happens until something happens in your own neighborhood or to yourself, then it comes to your attention. And then that's when people get active on it. So, you know, I think it's something we should look at and just not receive it. At some point in time, we should do something about this, that this doesn't happen, because we know it happens time and time again. Thank you.
Mr. Labra?
Yeah, Your Worship, Council. Concerning that, Councillor McLaren, we have also our property standard that we can link into that does the exterior of the home. So this presently it is in effect, and if there is any danger or anything that's not quite finished, we can use that direction to help to finish. But in order to tell people they have to finish in a certain time, I think it's there's more to it than just what we're talking about here. Like I say, the only way you could do that is if you had a subdivision agreement of some sort that would specify, just like BD Crescent or everything else, they have to have the driveway paved and it has to be finished. This is in there, you can't change it. But to do subdivisions that are not done, I think it's quite hard to really push certain direction. The only way you could do it if there's a problem with the property standard. And we did do property standard in this town, and it has to be well taught and well put into place.
Thank you. I will say, am I correct, Mr. Labra, that I think this construction is currently under 6 months? It's quite a large construction, and it started late
Yes.
summer, if I recall. So it's hasn't, for a 3,000 square foot addition, not necessarily a long time at this point.
And that's correct. It is a very big project. There's many projects that happen in Deep River right now that are been going on for 2 years, and they're half the size, and nothing was said. It's just that you almost got to think also the financial part of the owner. Not everybody can finish a house in 1 year and completely done. No, we have to be realistic about this also, and have it to a point that maybe we can direct them through the building. A lot of time we let them know what can be done and everything else. No, but I know it is something that if you get involved in this, we'll have to think of it very carefully how you want to do this.
Reeve Doncaster, do you've got a comment or you wish to extract?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of comments. One is that, I understand, the complexities of this, but I have two concerns. One is, well, the first one's not a concern, but we talk about being open for business, being development friendly, and that type of thing. Having the flexibility within our official plan and, the building department is an advantage to the town. So somebody adding a significant piece onto their house, it's going to drive more revenue for the town. So, I mean, that's the upside to that. The only concern I have with this situation is that I think it's reasonable for us to ensure that the old Mattawa road allowance is restored to the original condition that it was, because there has been a lot of traffic in and out of there, and it's certainly changed that area significantly. So those are my only comments.
Thank you. Reeve, I agree with that. I think we've passed that on before to the Robbins. Councilor McLaren, did you want to extract this or just bring it?
No,
No?
thank you.
Okay. If there are no more comments on this one, I'm going to move to the next one, which is 6.1.2, proposed blue box transition schedule to new full producer responsibility from Graydon Smith, AMO President and Mayor of Bracebridge. You'll see on that the town of Deep River is scheduled for, let's see that,
2025.
2025. We had applied for 2023, but they put us at 2025 with everybody else. And strangely, I could not find either Petawawa or Pembroke on the list. So I don't know if that's an oversight, or I assumed we are all, I know that Laurentian Hills and Head Claremore are all the same as us. So I guess they just decided to do our part of the province at that time. So with no extraction, I'm moving on to the next one. A letter from Lisa Saif and Wakar Saif with regard to a property designated as heritage under the Heritage Act. I'm going to suggest that be extracted if nobody else is going to. Next item is 6.1.4, physician recruitment and retention incentive. Dick Rabishaw, board chair, Deep River and District Hospital. I did mention something about this at the last meeting, and then we received the letter that's attached to the agenda. We actually just received it last week, but it was dated from January. So I don't think it got issued. And we have a budget in our 2020 budget that I think we can should abide by. And we can certainly consider a different amount for our 2021 budget. So I wasn't going to change the recommendation from received. I just wanted to make that comment. Councillor Hughes and then Reeve Doncaster. Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
Just one quick question on this, because I remember Mr. Ravachol was here earlier, I guess this year, and with that request, and it was too late for that budget. And at that time, I think the discussion came up around the need to perhaps also include Petawawa in this because of the numbers of Petawawa residents who use the emergency room. And I was interested to see in the annual report that, which actually had a breakdown of residents of the patients of the doctors, and the same kind of, I guess, percentage was there. I mean, Petawawa was 23% and even Pembroke 14% in terms of their residents being patients of the doctors in this here. So I guess I'm just wondering whether, if you know, Mayor Dion, whether the hospital has pursued that with Petawawa in terms of them helping out with this. I mean, obviously, if we're recruiting doctors, it would appear the catchment area that of patients we're trying to serve is not just Deep River, Laurentian Hills. So I'm just wondering if they've been approached for support as well.
The last recruitment committee meeting I attended, Mr. Bedard said that Dick Ravachol, the board chair, had gone to Petawawa, and was his understanding that Mayor Sweet had and the council had agreed to set some money aside. I cannot confirm that, however. So I did make a note to myself that somebody would ask that, and I wanted to confirm it, but I forgot to confirm it before this meeting. But I have been told that they have been approached and were receptive. So I can't confirm that though. Reeve Doncaster.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just the question, I was just scanning through there. I'm just trying to see the resolution, but if we're planning on doing this, some of that money, if not all of it, is in a reserve. So council would actually have to release that money by resolution.
Okay, my understanding is they invoice for it. I think Mr. Smith might be on the line, but I believe.
Yeah, but the money is still reserved, so we would have to authorize it to come out of that reserve.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. The doctor recruitment funds have been always sent as a invoice to the basically the hospital, the recruitment association group, and up to for disbursement. The 16,000 that was in our budget is what, and I forget the rest of it is what was budgeted to be expended to this fund that they are in control of.
Does that mean we need a council resolution to release the money or no?
I believe, well, we've already, through Your Worship, we've already have the resolution through the budget to release the 16,000 to the fund. And okay, as far as I know, for the expenditures of the fund, it would be up to the group that does the doctor recruitments, and do not believe it would require a council resolution.
Okay, thanks. Reeve Doncaster, you follow up on that?
Yeah, sorry. So my question, I guess, Mr. Smith referred to the 16,000, but I'm curious about the 28,000, whether that was budgeted or reserved. And
we did not budget for that. That request came in after our budget was approved.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that for sure. Councillor McLaren, did you have a comment or a question?
Just a comment. I think several years ago, this comes every year before council. And I think one time we had asked us, where does this money get spent? How do they spend it? Do they spend it all? Or is there money left over? What are we getting for our dollar? I think we need to have that answer from the recruitment board as to what they do to try and recruit doctors to Deep River. Not just giving them money And what did he do with it?
I could try and answer that question, but I won't. I will leave it to, we can maybe get them to come and present to council. I was informed that it really depends on the physician and what their interests are. So it varies.
Okay.
We'll get them to come to council at some point and present. All right, moving on to, we just have the one item extracted right now on the heritage property. Moving on to the minutes. 6.2.1, the council meeting minutes for October 21st, 2020. Any comment or extraction? Seen, oh, Councillor Myers, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor Dion, I just, there is a resolution to deal with the correspondence before we get on to the minutes. Perhaps we should.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Myers.
So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Be it resolved that all of the proposed resolutions shown in section 6.1 correspondence of the agenda, save and accept item 6.1.3, be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear on the agenda and sequentially numbered.
Thank you. Any further discussion of that resolution? All in favor? All right, that's carried. Then on to the minutes, the council meeting minutes of October 21st. No hands. We're going to move on to the special council meeting minutes of October 28th. All right, seeing no other comments on that. Councillor Fitton, could you move our receipt and approval of the minutes, please?
Certainly, moved by myself, seconded by Reeve Doncaster. Be it resolved that all the proposed resolutions shown in section 6.2 minutes of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear in the agenda and numbered sequentially.
Thank you. All in favor of the minutes? And that's carried. All right, moving on to reports in front of council tonight. And again, you can extract the report if you wish to challenge or question something on it. If you just have a comment or a brief question, then you can I'll just ask for your comment. But when we get to the Public Works one, which is first, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Mr. Patterson if he has anything he wishes to state about 6.3.1. Mr. Patterson, anything to add to that report or anything to highlight?
Certainly, Your Worship. I think there's a couple things that I could touch on in regards to the report. One of them is the lack of a Aqua report there. So council can expect the Q3 from Aqua component of this report in the within the next couple of council meetings. The second thing I would like to make mention of in the report is we are still using the old template. And it is our intention to streamline this report and implement a same period comparison from the previous year or years in terms of sort of key performance indicators and metrics so that council can see whether there's an upward trend or a downward trend in some of the stats we're reporting. The last thing I'll make mention of is the water consumption numbers from CNL. So things are going relatively well with our water supply to them, although it's a little bit hard to know what impact is COVID related, excuse me, and what impact is just potentially water conservation or other measures. But the water consumption, average daily consumption, which was estimated to be 1,500 cubic meters a day, is down in and around the 700 mark, 650 to 700 cubic meters a day on average. So it's considerably lower. And I guess as more people return to work, we'll start to see it normalize, but it's going to be a little bit of a longer term perspective. But we will certainly be providing you with that number. And as we move forward, and it's been running for a couple of years, you'll see it as compared to previous periods and things like that. So I'll just draw your attention to those items. And happy to answer any questions.
Just in terms of the importance of the water consumption, all our revenue for water is based on per cubic meter consumption, correct? That's the model. So if their consumption is lower, we're not getting the revenue that we had budgeted to pay off some of the investment?
Partially correct. So your worship, through the council, certainly the revenue we expected is completely from that consumptive rate at this point in time. The capital investment was made by CNL, but our concern is that sort of long-term asset replacement. So it's now we own the asset, so it will be our responsibility to replace them. So it is critical that not only does the consumptive rate cover our operational costs as related to it, but carry a proportional amount of, I'll call them asset replacement costs. Okay. So what is in there though is a 3-year review. So that utility rate study we're doing right now, along with the CNL contract, the original 2012 CNL contract, AECL contract, honestly, will determine a review to ensure that, I mean, the basic principle is that the ratepayers of Deep River are not subsidizing water for CNL, and that CNL is not subsidizing the water costs for the ratepayers of Deep River. And that principle is ingrained in the contract.
Thank you. And one other thing, would you mind commenting on the hot box, what it is? I understand it's a very good deal. I just wondered if you can explain what it does.
Certainly, your worship, through to council, the hot box is basically a propane fired hot steel box on wheels that keeps asphalt hot mix hot. So what this is used for is for pothole filling and things like that. So traditionally we've been using cold mix to fill potholes. And as everybody who's driven over them can attest to, a couple cars drive over it and it just spreads it around there. It doesn't stick very well. So this is we've been looking at potentially a hot box for a number of years. And they're quite expensive, about $35,000. And every now and then the county does this, auctions off certain items that they're no longer using. This hot box had a couple of deficiencies, which we were able to easily repair. So in the vicinity of about a $35,000 hot box, we have it up and running and working very effectively for under $3,000. So we're quite happy. We were able to do that within our operating budget in terms of our road maintenance budget quite effectively. We didn't get much use out of it, but we did get a couple days of use out of it. And I expect we'll be using it as we transition into the winter when we get those windows of opportunity, and we'll certainly be at it in the spring.
Okay, thank you. Reeve Doncaster, please go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things. I'll start backwards on the with respect to the hot box. Clearly not my fault and clearly other people's fault, but there were a number of county councillors that were not very happy that we were the successful bidder on that, because they seemed to miss it it kind of went under the radar for them, and they didn't get bids in fast enough. But so they were quite disappointed that Deep River got this hot box and they didn't get it. So kudos to Mr. Patterson for that. CNL water line or CNL water rates may be based on, the experience that we're having right now. Maybe something to consider would be to have a base rate in there that's not tied to consumption, and then consumption on top of the base rate. I don't know if that's something that's being considered or not. And then I'm just going to, just to emphasize the fact, and I don't want this to sound the way it's going to sound, but and Mr. Patterson has already explained this, but just to emphasize it, and I can pick almost anything out of the report, but I'll pick one. I'll pick two. There was a total of 25 man hours spent on shoulder maintenance in Q3. And then the next one is there were 5 new streetlight outage events during Q3, which were fixed. So what? What does that tell me? So if I don't have a comparison to the previous quarter or the same quarter last year, it doesn't mean much. And even having it, and I know Mr. Patterson gets it because he's going to transition to that, but I just want to emphasize that as I read through this report, it's great information, but I have nothing to relate it to. So just for information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaren?
Yes, thank you. To Mr. Patterson, getting back to the water rates and the charge to CNL. We started charging CNL, I think it was December 1st, 2019. What mechanism is in place for us to recoup the water that was sent down to CNL when the pumping station was turned on back probably 1.5 years, 2 years ago? There's a considerable amount of water went down through that pipeline, and is there a mechanism in place for us to recoup that cost?
Certainly, Your Worship, through to Council. The short answer is yes, there is a mechanism to recoup that cost. What we are doing, and COVID has certainly slowed it down, is currently proposed addendum to the AECL Deep River contract from 2012 is in the hands, that was drafted and is now in the hands of CNL. It's with their legal department and they're reviewing it. Once that's concluded and we have the addendum contract in place, we will be issuing a final billing, which will include the water consumption prior to, through the construction period. And there's a variety of that. Now, my understanding in preliminary discussions with CNL is that their contractors will be responsible for a significant portion of that, because a lot of that water was used to pressure test and superchlorinate the lines that were constructed by their contractor, which was BEI. So, and it may not be BEI, it may be BEI or their subcontractors. So that's the mechanism in place for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions from council and no one wishes to extract, then I'll move on to the next report. Seeing none, so that is report number 2020, Finance Admin 002, the Q3 Finance Admin report from Arthur Smith, Treasurer, and Jackie Mellon, Clerk. We'll start with Ms. Mellon and then Mr. Smith. Do you have anything you want to point out or highlight from your report? Please go, Ms. Mellon.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. So just on the vital statistics, we didn't have any lottery licenses issued, and I guess that was due to COVID. Everything was put on hold for that. I think the same thing with cemetery interments. I think a lot of people are holding off, so that was down quite a bit. And I'm not sure if Mr. Labrie, I think he's still on, wanted to speak to his by law enforcement.
Yeah, thanks. I know there was quite a few.
Actually, yeah.
He's still there.
Yeah, I am still here. Yeah, there was quite a few. I still blame it on the COVID situation because if I go back to building first, concerning the permits for fence, I think we had a surplus of about 110% more fence permit than anything else. So naturally that made a little bit more issues for by law enforcement for property damage or whatever. So but it did change quite a bit. Right now, I think people are realizing that there is regulations and things they can do and maybe try to get along with their neighbor, because they got to stay with them for quite a while. So, but like I say, if you see what you see there, it is certain went up in some direction, but again, for let's say parking and marina and stuff like that for boat trailers and everything, and that was down quite a bit. So, but else than that, it was pretty good.
But Mr. Labra, building permit value is up significantly this year over last year. Is that what I'm reading?
Yes, as a matter of fact, well, when we have a building permit, we're close to $35,000, which is TSH. That really brings the value quite up. And also, we have 4 new homes that are being built presently on BD subdivision.
Okay.
So that is doing quite a bit also. And also quite a few renovations, big renovations, smaller ones, but all in all, it's been a very, very good year for building, even though the COVID time came around, but I think that kind of helped it in some ways. The only thing is right now we're finding problems with the lumber. A lot of contractors have a hard time finding lumber to finish their project or do something else, because it is quite in demand. And thankfully, Mr. At TSH, Mr. Streak had that all figured out, and all the lumber for that big building is already built, is already in the building, and they're taking it when they need it. So that's going to keep on going quite well.
That was good planning on their part. It's a challenge this year to get lumber. Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry, Councillor. Yeah, I think we're very fortunate to have a contractor with that caliber of building. It is a pleasure to work with him. He is very upfront, and I think there was one problem and it was solved within a phone call, and by the next day everything was done. So no, I'm very happy that he chose to come in Deep River and do this nice project.
That's nice to hear. Reeve Doncaster, do you have a question on those updates?
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed the elevation of the building, and I'm just curious as to why it's at the elevation that it's at. It seems a little odd, but
it's a slab on grade, they call it. What it is, there's no basement. So right now, what they did, they brought soil. They had to go down to undisturbed soil in order to put their footings, and then they needed a frost wall, meaning they had to have a wall below frost. As you will see right now, the level of the ground around the building, that's going to be the actual finish level. There'll be a lot of sand brought up. But before they do this, this is all going to be taken out again. And then they're going to put their weepers and everything else into a special place. So it's just the way it's right now. It's by itself because they brought the soil to it. But once the landscaping is done, water will be getting away from the foundation, which is correct, and towards the parking lot and everything else. But there's no basement, that's why.
Thank you. We'll let Mr. Smith go on to, if there's anything you want to highlight on the financial side of the Q3 report, Mr. Smith, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Council. As Ms. Mellon has pointed out, the decrease in revenues from like the drop in lottery licenses and same goes with the recreation have created some items of concern, but we still feel that other areas are strong and that it's an area that we're keeping an eye on, not an area of major concern, hence why the squares were yellow, not red. Because the example is to go with it, the booming real estate market has led to above normal tax certificates, which has increased the revenue above budget. So we're offsetting some revenues with other areas. And that overall, through the pandemic, the town has been managing their financials fairly well and appear to be fairly well on track for the end of the year.
Thank you. I did notice, and I'm not sure if Mr. Patterson can comment on this, but overtime, there was the only area of concern with regard to overtime was in recreation, which surprised me. Is there any rationale for that. It was fairly significant overage. If I read that right. Oh, Mr. Patterson, you're muted.
Sorry, I hit my button and didn't work there. Sorry, Your Worship, through the council. It is something that hit our radar, and I can't truly explain it. We traditionally always incur significant overtime there, and it tends to be when we're putting the ice in. So when you're putting the ice in, we're often, we've got a couple people who are putting in a massive number of hours over a 2-week period, 10-day period. To get that done. How that fell out of the budget and it wasn't budgeted for, and that's what the overage is about. If you look at the overtime number there compared to previous years, it's not inconsistent with what we normally would incur in terms of a cost.
Okay, I see. It just wasn't budgeted for. All right. Any other questions from council to Mr. Smith or Ms. Mellon, Mr. Labra on the Finance and Admin report, or any wish to extract? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody's hands up, so we're going to move on.
Bishop, if we could do the motion.
Yeah. Thank you. We've got 2 reports to receive. Reeve Doncaster, can you move the 2 reports be received?
Certainly, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rochon. Be it resolved that the proposed resolutions in section 6.3 reports of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear on the agenda and sequentially numbered.
Thank you. I think we'll have to change that because I don't think Councillor Rochon is on yet. So maybe.
Yep, she's here.
Oh, is she? She's
Yep.
just, oh, I see. There's a second page and I can't even see her. Sorry, Christine. All right, thank you. Any discussion of the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Now I see. All right. Then we had 1 item extracted and I extracted it, so I just wanted to speak to that. It was item 6.1.3. And I think the only thing I wanted to do rather than just receive this, the couple that wrote this are asking for us to approve their demolition and of this, the collapsing Heritage Barn building. And I have to say, I don't think that our municipality, we don't have a lot of heritage designations, so I don't think we do this a lot. So I'm not sure that what their appropriate step is. I did have a quick review of the Heritage Act, and I couldn't tell on quick review whether or not we needed to pass a resolution to amend the bylaw to remove that building, or that we pass a resolution to waive or agree with their proposal, or what we would have to do, or why that property and all the buildings were designated. So I was going to suggest that rather than just receive it, that we ask staff to report back with whatever options we have within the next month, because I think it's 60 days they've said is appropriate. And then from what I could tell in the Heritage Act, I couldn't tell, it looked like anywhere from 60 to 90 days or 30 days. It needed a little bit more investigation, I think, than I did this afternoon. So I don't know if other councillors would agree with that, but I think that we probably should get our facts straight and then make a decision whether to or not to agree with this request. So I'm suggesting rather than just receive, be received, and that council requests staff to come back with a report within the next 30 days on our options. Any comments from the rest of council on that? Reeve Doncaster?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a warning that my internet's unstable, so if I disappear, you'll know why. Yeah, no, this is the type of correspondence that should be referred to staff to come back with some options. I too have looked at the Heritage Act, and I'm not clear on even what we're allowed to do. You know, so that I'm not really sure. I think there's, I remember this. I wasn't on council at the time, but I do remember it in the North Renfrew Times, I believe. Because I think it was under Lyle Smith, Mayor Lyle Smith at the time. But anyway, having said that, I think there's, so we haven't really done anything with this property or required previous owners to do any upgrades or maintenance or look after this property in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, I think it potentially could be quite onerous on the current owner if they have to, I don't know, if they have to rebuild these structures or something based on, you know, something in the Heritage Act. I'm not sure that's the case, but I'm also not sure that under the Heritage Act designation that we have much of a choice, but I have no idea. So I think it's appropriate that we refer it back to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fitton, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had a very similar comment. I agree. We definitely need some more information because just the way the letter is written, said they weren't, I'm assuming they weren't aware until they came to get a demolition permit from the town that it was a heritage building to do that. Now that said, because I'd also like to know what are our options in keeping it. It's a fairly, I remember as a kid it being a heritage site because it's the King's Farm homestead is a significant piece of Deep River history. We don't have a lot of buildings like that. So the question is whether we allow something like this to be, if we're allowed to allow that to be demolished. At the same time, we need to know what options are there to preserve anything that's remaining as well.
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess I can look to staff. I don't know if Ms. Mellon or Mr. Labra know anything more about this before we call a vote on my proposed amendment. Ms. Mellon, can you go ahead if there's anything you're aware of?
Your Worship, through the council, I did just see something come through today on a motion that was passed by another municipality on property designated as heritage. And I looked at it real quickly, and I do believe that an application would have to be submitted if they wanted to do something other than maintain that designation. So I know there is more information that we need to look at. And I do believe there needs to be, it's not a quick process. There has to be an application submitted, which would need to be approved.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was a proposal to change the process or it already has been approved. Mr. Patterson, you've got your hand up. Do you have anything else to add? Oh, you're on mute.
Seem to be struggling with that tonight. Your Worship, through you to council, my understanding along with that is that it would also involve potentially the county. So I think referring to staff so that they can have an opportunity, because it sounds like the appeal also processes through the LPAT, so the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal may be something that's involved.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. So I'm going to make a proposal for 6.1.3. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Lisa Saif and Waqar Saif regarding property designated as heritage under the Heritage Act be received, and that council requests staff to review the status and report back to council with options within the month.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Ms. Mellon, do you have that more or less?
More or less.
Okay, thanks. We'll call any further discussion of that motion. Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? All right, that's carried. And I think now we're going on to, item I had, item 7, strategic plan update. I know all council we were heavily involved in this almost 2 years ago. We're surprisingly almost 2 years into this term. So we have about another year and a half of work left to do. And I think we're making good progress. And I know Councillor Hughes has looked at this recently too, and I don't intend to spend a lot of time tonight's meeting going through it. I do want to say I think we've made some good progress. We're really advancing on the marketing task force work, the website. I know Ms. Mellon's got a lot of work done on that, and it will merge in with the marketing branding material soon. We also are making progress on our community improvement plan and our secondary plan. However, there's areas that I think we still need to make some progress on. The procedure bylaw kind of got stalled, so I've spoken to Councillor Rochon, and she's keen to take that back on again and bring it forward to fruition with the support of the other council members who, if you're still willing to support her in that. And what I was going to suggest is that we have like a 1 meeting workshop for about 90 minutes sometime in the next month, and on a Wednesday, like a special meeting of council, basically to revisit our strategic plan and make sure that we are on track and that we prioritize those items that as a council we feel are highly important to focus on in the next 18 months between council and staff. So this will be a workshop between us all. It probably has to be a Zoom workshop, unfortunately, but I'll make sure we get the status material out to everybody beforehand. So there is some good progress, and even, you know, despite COVID, we're making some gains, and we're also continuing with discussions with AECL and CNL on some matters that could be of benefit to the town. So I think we're doing well, but I'd like to make sure that we're focused on what we want to do for the rest of our term. So if council is willing, I'd like to suggest we have a sort of a hour and a half focused strategic plan special meeting. And in particular, I think some of our upcoming council meetings aren't highly subscribed yet, so we could maybe steal one of those. So I can just put that forward. I don't know if there's a resolution on that. I just propose to be it resolved that the update, I guess, first of all, I'll open that to questions before I call a receiving vote. Any questions from council? Some of you are cut off my screen, so speak up if I'm missing you. I've got my screen split. Okay. Then I'm going to say, be it resolved that the update, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fitton. Be it resolved that the update to council by Mayor Dion regarding the strategic plan be received. And any discussion of that motion? Councillor Myers, go ahead.
Sorry, just as far as you suggested that some of the upcoming meetings might not be might not have a heavy agenda, but we are due to receive the first draft of the operating budget at our next regular meeting. And I think to try and do those things together in one meeting might be a little overwhelming. So
yeah, we couldn't do those together.
Probably a special meeting would work better than adding it to the agenda of that meeting at least.
I think Councillor or Mr. Patterson, you've got a comment on that in the next meetings as well, right?
Your worship, through to council, operating budget is proposed to come to you on November 25th at a special council meeting. The next scheduled council meeting is the 18th of November, and it's the one with the light agenda.
Okay, and then the one following that, I think, is December 2nd. Well,
Uh,
let's
yeah,
see how that agenda works out, and is that right?
That's correct, Your Worship. Through you to council. That is correct on the December 2nd. And having said that, tentatively, we've scheduled Watson and Associates to present to council their utility rate study for December 2nd.
Okay. I'll work with staff and the counselors to try and pick a ideal date within the next few weeks. But I did hear from council that they prefer the Wednesday, so we'll be sticking with a Wednesday. Okay, so I need to call the vote on receiving that. Oh, Councillor Myers, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna, maybe I should withdraw my comment generally. If the operating budget is gonna go to a special meeting, then perhaps the next regular council meeting would be a good time to do the strategic. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm sure you can figure out the date. I was just worried about trying to do too much at one meeting.
I agree, absolutely. I understand. So we'll see if the agenda stays light for the next meeting. Maybe we'll just focus on the strategic plan. Okay, all in favor of receiving that very limited update? All right, that's carried. We've got a bylaw to bring forward tonight, which is the bylaw with regard to 44/2020 to appoint a chief administrative officer. It's not on our bylaw sheet, but perhaps we can have a mover and a seconder with regard to that bylaw. Councillor McLaren?
I'll move it, yes.
Okay, a seconder? Councillor Fitton, I guess? Go ahead. Can one of you want to read it out?
Sure, I can do that.
Sure.
So it should be moved by myself or seconded by Councillor McLaren. Be resolved the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time numbered, passed, and signed by the mayor, clerk, and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto. Bylaw number 44/2020, a bylaw to appoint a chief administrative officer.
Right, thank you. Any further discussion on that resolution? Councillor Myers, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Dean. I'm sorry, I was just going to suggest maybe for council's already heard this, but maybe for to put it on the public record, you made a couple of comments about the recruitment, but maybe just to put it on the public record that we started with 30 applicants. We had a short list. We did a first round of interviews with 3. Anyway, it was there were 3. The 2 final candidates went through a series of 3 interviews. The final one was in person. Was quite a rigorous process. There was also a tool that the county uses to assess behavioral traits, that kind of thing. It was quite a rigorous process, and the CAO, the recruitment committee, was unanimous in recommending Mr. Patterson, and I think we're all happy that we had the successful candidate right in the position to begin with, that we were able to find somebody in-house with the experience and skills, and I'm very pleased to have this bylaw in front of us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Thanks for that context. So if no one else has anything to add, I'll call the vote now. All in favor of approval of that bylaw? All right, and that's carried. Thank you very much, and congratulations again, Mr. Patterson. We do have a couple of items, I think, for closed session. So we're going to move into closed session right now. Councillor Fitton, can you Oh, no, we don't. We need somebody to move us into closed session. And I'll move us. I'll say be it resolved that council move into closed session at 7:11 PM to address a matter in accordance with section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 pertaining to, and I'm just going to the bottom here. Regarding council closed session meeting minutes of August 5th, council closed session meeting minutes of September 23rd, and council closed session meeting minutes of October 28th, and CNL Fire Services Agreement Update. So any discussion of moving into closed session? We need a seconder for that, by the way. Councillor Roshan, you're good. I'll get Councillor Hughes next. Thank you. All in favor of moving into closed session? All right, that's carried. So this will turn off the video. So we have no further business from closed, correct? So the only matters left, we have no matters from closed, so we can move to the confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Myers. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 45, 2020, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Deep River at the meeting held on November 4th, 2020.
Thank you. All in favor of the confirmatory bylaw? All right, and then Councillor Myers, can you adjourn us, please?
Certainly moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fitton. Be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the meeting at 7:56 PM.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Everybody.
So what I wanted to mention, and it would have been more advantageous if Vance was still here, but he's not, but perhaps there's somebody else on this meeting that might pass this along. So I had 2 calls last week, from residents that received that phone call from the CRA telling them that they're defrauding the government and they're going to get arrested and all of that. The challenging thing about it, and I'm wondering if I was wondering if maybe the reporter that was here earlier might pick this up and put a notice in the newspaper. The challenging thing about it is now they're spoofing a Deep River phone number. So people are answering the call thinking it's somebody from Deep River. If it's an 800 number and it does that funny long distance ring, well, people just ignore the phone, right? They don't answer it. But now that it's coming up on the call display with a Deep River phone number, there's a little bit more concern about that. So, maybe the NRT can pick that up and put a notice out there or something. Just thanks. I get the call all the time. It's really interesting to talk to them for a minute. As soon as you ask them a couple questions, they hang up on you.
All right. And it is cold in here, and is that why, Mr. Patterson? It's the unit on top of this? Okay. All right.
That's the case, and it occurs to me, I apologize for the stumble there, because the reality is what we'll do is we'll go ahead and replace it, and then I will bring it to council for a proposal in a report through the normal, we got it very, very last second. We just got the number today. So
where are you going to pay for it?
Propose an allocation.
Yeah. Well, it is cold in here. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.